Amy Whaley's husband Bobby has sarcoidosis. Like most Sarc patients, his life is a struggle, but so is hers as the primary caregiver.
Whatever we thought our life would be, you can get lost in that.
Coming up, Amy talks about what life is like for the person who has to take care of the Sarc patient, how her life has changed, and expectations went out the window.
And then he and I met at CrossFit. So we were at that point in time, super prime athletic bodies and health. And this is what we thought our life would be like. We wanted to travel a lot. Like you're saying, we both loved to work out together. And so making that shift to see, okay, these are the things that we feel like we've lost. How do we figure out a way to put them back in?
This is the Sarc Fighter podcast, living with sarcoidosis and other rare diseases. Here's your host, John Carlin.
Hello and welcome. This is episode 51 of the Sarc Fighter podcast. I'm your host, John Carlin, and this podcast is brought to you in part by a grant from Atire Pharma. So I do this podcast to offer my fellow Sarc fighters hope and to help you connect with other Sarc patients, to hear their stories and understand how sarcoidosis affects their lives. And hopefully that helps you understand what you're up against and what you need to do if you want to overcome, whether it's the disease or the effects of the disease or the medicine or both. And I'm recording this in my home office. I live in Roanoke, Virginia. My trusty dog, Dougal, is curled up on what used to be my chair here in my office. And he is one of the things that helps me get through and makes my life so much better. And I always appreciate Dougal's companionship as we work on the Sarc Fighter podcast. It's the holiday season of 2021 as I record this. And looking back around at Thanksgiving, I talked about all that I was thankful for this year. I had a great year of travel, as I mentioned, thanks in part to my case of Sarc being controlled. And so I got the opportunity to go fishing in Montana. I rode my bicycle in Utah and Kentucky and here in Virginia. And my wife and I really enjoyed life this summer. It was great. And I do reflect back on it here at the end of 2021. And it has been a wonderful year. And I just live in constant fear that I'll have some sort of a flare. But so far, my medicines are working, and my medical team has this under control, and things are looking good. And it was it was right about this time in 2018 that I had my most recent flare, and it was a bad one, and it basically cost me most of 2019. In terms of taking the time to recover and deal with the medications and so forth. So 2020, of course, was not great for any of us because of COVID, but 2019 was a bear for me because of what happened there in December of 2018. So anyway, this is a time of year when I look back and I just think, wow, I'm dodging the bullet, and I hope I can just continue to dodge the bullet. And so here in 2021, I can tell you how happy I am. We've added 2 new grandchildren to the family, little Finn and little Addison. And now Mary and I have 6 grandchildren. They all live locally here in Roanoke, Virginia, and we see a lot of them, and I am so blessed. I am so, so blessed. Let me back up for just a second because I want to talk about caregivers today. And when my life went south, really for the second time, after that second flare that I just mentioned, it didn't just affect me. My wife had days where she had to take care of me or to tolerate me being frustrated, or thanks to the 80 milligrams of prednisone that I was on for weeks, months, whatever, and then slowly down to 70, 60, whatever. It didn't seem to matter. I had anger issues, and I had no filter. I would just say whatever was on my mind, and That's dangerous. That was dangerous at work. It was dangerous at home. And I had an emotional hair trigger. Any little thing could set me off, and then I would just say whatever I wanted. And then my wife had to go with me to my doctor's appointment. She had to take time off from work and basically interrupt her plans and her life. And today on the podcast, we'll be listening to Amy Whaley, whose husband, Bobby, has a more severe case of sarcoidosis than I do. He was a football coach. They were both very fit. In fact, they met at the gym and had so much in common, and they wanted to travel. They wanted to do things that, in a sense, only fit and adventurous people do, and like downhill mountain biking, which they had just started getting into, or at least Bobby had, while Amy was out running 5Ks. And then shortly after they got married, Bobby's Sarc flared up in a big way. And they live in Georgia, and there's not a lot of Sarc-specific health care available near where they live. And so today, I want you to hear how Amy's life changed and how she has had to adapt as Bobby went from this adventurer to a man who literally some days struggles to get from bed to the couch. So now she's taking care of him. She takes him to the doctor. She arranges her whole life around dealing with sarcoidosis, even though she's not the one who has it. And she does that very lovingly. She does that without complaint. She says Bobby is her person, and that is her role in life, and she's happy to do it, but it's not the life that either one of them signed up for. And we haven't heard enough from the caregivers here on the podcast. So Amy's story is next here on the Sarc Fighter podcast.
I feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying the Sarc Fighter podcast. You may be wondering, what can I do to help? How can I be a part of the sarcoidosis solution? It's simple. Make a donation to KISS, Kick In to Stop Sarcoidosis. 100% of the money goes to the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. Look for a link in the show notes of the Sarc Fighter podcast. Welcome back to the Sarc Fighter podcast, and joining me now is Amy Whaley, who is a caregiver to a Sarc patient. Amy, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me, John.
Yeah, so you have the distinction of being the first caregiver to appear on the Sarc Fighter podcast. And I always wonder, are just the patients listening, or are there loved ones and caregivers listening as well? And you reached out to me and said, yeah, we're listening. So yeah, how did you guys find the podcast?
Well, both Bobby and I, a lot of navigating this journey is finding other people who either are going through the same experiences, or it's the same way that all of us find different care or better care or a resource that, helps. And so I'm always going to Google for, different reasons and different information. And then Bobby and I are also both members of Facebook groups, and we're very connected with our new clinic in Charleston. And they always share a lot of different resources as well. And then I follow a lot on LinkedIn. So that includes like the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research. And so there were some things that were shared on LinkedIn, and I clicked, and then that got me to your podcast, and then, downloaded the app and just kind of browsed and listened. And then one Saturday, that was I forget which one it was, but the patient that you had talked to, his journey was very much like my husband Bobby's. And it was great to hear that someone else shares the same journey. It doesn't help as far as having answers or feeling better, but sometimes it's nice to know that, you're not by yourself out there trying to figure things out. And Bobby and I didn't have to raise small children. I think part of his story was what that process and navigating parenting like that. We have a 28-year-old. And so that's a different set of circumstances as far as having help and understanding, Bobby's journey is different. We don't have, young children, but that's how I got to you and listen to that. And I just think it's important. A lot of times we're all disconnected. There's so many resources and none of us are talking to each other, or like you're saying, telling someone, hey, I really appreciate the fact that you shared this because it has helped me. We do that a lot on the Facebook groups. Hey, we're trying this. It's working. Just want to let you know it's out there if it helps someone else. You have to try and find meaning. And that's when your season with Sarc is a long season and you're in that small percentage of people where it's systemic, like in Bobby's case, where you just feel like which organ is next, which organ is going to be next. Then it's you are really looking for purpose. So, why has God placed me in this circumstance? And why is it so long? What should I be doing with this to really help someone else or fulfill the purpose of this season? And that's what Bobby, that's how he faces this. That's what he looks at and thinks about when he's trying to make a decision about why we're in it.
Right.
But that's how we found you. Yeah.
Well,
it was just,
that's kind of why I do the podcast. I just said, if you listen to the promo that I run, it's like I just said, well, what can I do? What can I do with my skill set to try and advance the cause here? And so, and because I've got my background is broadcasting, so I just thought, well, all right, that's what I kind of want to do. And so, I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook groups, not from lack of want. It's just from lack of time. There's just so much of me that can go around. Well, listen, so let's talk a little bit about your husband, Bobby, and what's going on with him so people can then understand what's going on with you as a caregiver. So when did his symptoms first emerge? What did that look like?
Well, there's two parts of Bobby's life. There's pre-Amy, and then or Bamie, that's my nickname. And then there's our life together. We got married in 2013. We met in 2012. But Bobby was diagnosed in 2007, and he lived in Alabama at the time. So his first front line of care would have been in Birmingham. And, as he's looked back and we talk about symptoms, being tired, he was a high school football coach and teacher. He can remember having to rest, in the afternoon, we call it the choke out nap, where your body's so exhausted that if you don't lay down and go to sleep, your body will just going to fall out and you'll be asleep wherever it is that you land. And so he says, as he looks back on it, he probably was having symptoms before, but was formally diagnosed with a lung biopsy that year and went through a round of prednisone, which is that frontline therapeutic for everybody. And so went through that and then ended up, for a new job, moving to Macon, went through a divorce, and then he and I, this is our second marriage. So then really kind of had, I wouldn't say remission, but his symptoms had decreased to the point where he was able to work full time and really kind of came out of that. And then in 2013 on our honeymoon, he had a really bad mountain bike accident coming down off the mountain. And we think that trauma probably then rebooted his Sarc. And which as I do some research on anytime you have surgery or you have something like that where there's an external trauma, it can just really reactivate it.
Yeah, whatever it is that triggers that, the sarcoidosis says, "Oh, yeah, we need to rush to the aid of something that doesn't need to be fixed."
Yeah.
And then so, all right, now I have a little bit of an aside. I'm also a mountain biker, so and I've had some pretty bad wrecks. Can you just elaborate a little bit on his mountain bike?
Sure. I wish that he would tell it, because his story,
Yeah.
he's such a good storyteller. So both of us. So to really put it into perspective, to let you know that Bobby grew up as an athlete and then was a coach. And then he and I met at CrossFit. So we were at that point in time, super prime athletic bodies and health. And so it was July 4th. I was running a 5K at the bottom of the mountain. We went out west. So we were visiting Yellowstone during the day, and then, other activities. And so Big Sky is where we were at. And
Right
so
there.
he decided beautiful. I mean, that's kind of our heart geography, I guess. And so he said he really wanted to do the mountain bike experience. And so he says that he, went and checked out his bike, and, the guy behind the counter asked him, "Do you want to, here's the safety equipment, here are the other information that you need." And so he had a Camelback of water that he was wearing. He had his phone with him, and some things in that same pack. And what we think happened is that he got up there and took not a wrong turn, but just kind of shifted enough to be not on the groomed path, and had a great time. I mean, coming down the mountain all the way. He says he got to be within probably, and I'm not with him, I'm down at the bottom of the mountain. He was within 100 feet of being done. And
Right.
He, if you aren't staying focused, like if you let your mind wander at all to, "Oh, that's so beautiful," or "Look over there," or if you're riding a bike that's not your regular bike. So I think, if I remember what happened right, is he kind of shifted his focus just enough, and then pressed the wrong gear. So what he did, and then there's some gravel, so we're ungroomed, so sliding. So then he hits that and flips. I mean, he hits so hard that his bike flips him all the way over. He hits that, back of your neck, head, back, and then flumps again down on his lower back, and separated his shoulder. The thing that probably saved him from worse, he believes that Camelback pack really helped cushion his fall. And so I get done with my road race, and there's no text or anything, and I can't get it to go through. And because what had happened is that his phone had just taken the impact completely. So I get a Facebook message that says, "Hey, can you just go ahead and come on up to the hotel as soon as you can?" So I get up there, and they had arranged for, as part of their also July 4th activities, there had been a skateboarding contest. And so there were 2 orthopedic emergencies. They had a young man break his ankle, and then Bobby had what at that time what they thought was, separated shoulder. And then so they got us into an emergency appointment at the foot of the mountain with this orthopedic person who at least was able to prescribe him some medicine and get a brace and get him wrapped up. And, but we're pretty sure he had broken ribs. There's some other things too, that by the time we got back and, went to someone else, there was some healing that had happened. But
Yeah.
I think all of that just really, it got the Sarc going, because then by fall of that year, hypercalcemia was how Bobby's sarcoidosis really reared its ugly head.
What is that? Hypercalcemia. What is that?
So that's when there's so much calcium in your body that your kidneys shut down. And at that time we didn't have that was really, I would say, for a caregiver's journey, managing medicine and learning what medicines are good and what does the medicine do to you. And we had a doctor at that time who had made some had prescribed some medications for pain, for Sarc, was really trying to manage those things for us. But when you don't have someone that's looking at your whole body systemically, how is this medicine going to impact over here? And I see that a lot. And that's my interest, is I don't want you to give Bobby something that's then going to cause him more problems over here. And then you're going to have to give him another medicine to help with the side effects from this medicine. That never made sense to me. And so what we did with the hypercalcemia is the only thing that they knew to do for that was the prednisone, was to hit it, was to hospitalize and hit it, because it's an emergency. It means that your body's shutting down and they have to flush your system. So they have to put you on IV fluids, and then they have to shock your body with steroids. And so he was hospitalized that fall and for hypercalcemia, and it took them a while to figure out what to put him on to get that managed. And prednisone has always been, like I said, the front line. And
but that's at this point, are they saying sarcoidosis, or are they saying hypercalcemia for whatever reason?
Well, so we had a super great, during that time, you try to find consolidated care where you can. So we got referrals to Emory in Atlanta, but doctors don't talk to each other very well unless you really seek that consolidated care out. And so what began to happen is that, so they're like, well, you have lung sarcoidosis. And so this month, they would start to silo his symptoms or what was going on with him. And we have this great endocrinologist in Macon. His name is Dr. Barry Johns. And we got hooked up with him during that same time because he had found my mother's brain tumor. So we really trusted him. Okay. And he said, guys, people are going to continue to try to give you something else. But probably in your case, it's the sarcoidosis that is causing whatever is happening. So my recommendation would be that we get you back to somebody that just does Sarc. That's where we need to move you to. You need to get to somebody or a clinic where they are doing consolidated care for sarcoidosis.
Right. So let me just connect one dot that I missed here, because we had the mountain bike crash, and then he's got the separated shoulder and all those other things. And then what happened between then and the diagnosis with sarcoidosis in his lungs? How do they get back to that?
So 2007 was his diagnosis. So essentially the way that I describe it is that he came out of remission completely.
After the mountain bike crash.
Yeah, that triggered that immune response, that fight or flight, where his body was like, oh my gosh, we're under attack. Everything is under attack. So then those rogue cells, those rogue Sarc cells then go where they are not needed.
Right. And have some of the doctors sort of affirmed your suspicions here?
Yeah, so during that time, when Bobby was hospitalized, they decided that this is because of your sarcoidosis. So you're going to have to go back on prednisone. We're going to have to put you on IV fluids to flush your kidneys. Okay. And then also we got a referral to Mayo. So then you start that process of just, seeing every specialist for every part of your body. And that same, between 2013 and 2015, and when you talk about lost time, that's when Bobby had to take some time off from work, because you spend, when we went to Mayo, I think if I remember right, that would have been like a week, or it felt like that, like 3 or 4 days where you're seeing every doctor for everything that could be happening, but it never felt like everybody was still looking at it from the Sarc standpoint. And so then we come back home and it's sort of managed, but then you're dealing with all of the downside to taking a steroid at a high level. And then also there were some pain medications that had super downside side effects for Bobby that have been long lasting. He is insulin dependent now. And they're pretty sure that's due to all of the prednisone and dexamethasone that he had to be on during that time period, which doctors do the best they can when they don't see Sarc patients all the time. And so that was a really difficult time between 2013 and 2015. He was in and out of the hospital with this, what I would describe as kidney failure, which is due to the hypercalcemia, these just super high levels of calcium. And the way that, I think it was probably Dr. Johns that explained it to me, is that what happens is, our bodies have natural shutoffs for vitamins. Okay, this vitamin D has now been converted to enough calcium for your body. It's at the right level. We'll turn that off. Stop the conversion. And what happens with the hypercalcemia is that there's no turnoff. So during those years, as we struggled with that, those rogue cells, there was no shutoff. His vitamin, there was no, like in the back of your toilet, it never said there's enough calcium now, stop converting. And then you try to do things like, well, maybe you don't need to have any kind of vitamin D whatsoever. Never go outside. There's things like that people will tell you, but, those are the layers of trying to live a life with Sarc where you're like, does that really have an impact? Or is this just, it got really hard during that time because nothing seemed to work. And then whatever they gave him steroid wise to correct the hypercalcemia had super extreme side effects for him.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So now he's got the hypercalcemia, and we know that Sarc is active in his body. And you had said earlier in our talk here that you wonder what organ is going to be impacted next. Yeah. So has the sarcoidosis spread in Bobby's body?
It has. So, and that's a struggle too. I know for all of us that are trying to find care and get something attacked immediately or understood or seen or interpreted. We had spent about 2 years from, I'd say 2017, so maybe 3, from 2017 to 2020, trying to understand why Bobby's blood pressure would never regulate. And so, had multiple tests here in Macon, saw cardiologists. And then our son moved to Charleston, and that's how we ended up at the clinic in Charleston, is that I thought, well, that's going to be he'll be there to help us. It's a much easier drive. You don't have to go to Atlanta. And I did some research and found out there was a Sarc clinic there. And the way they had gotten their clinic is Susan Pearlstein, her family was a very prominent family in Charleston, and she had been diagnosed with sarcoidosis after a long period of time, of not knowing what she had. And so she actually donated $5 million to open a clinic there just for sarcoidosis patients. And so when we got there, Bobby's doctor said, let's do a PET scan. And that's where they discovered in December 2020 that that's what was causing his arrhythmia. That's what was causing the blood pressure issues. There's a lot you learn as a caregiver about how the human body works. There are two sides to how our heart works. You have a mechanical side and an electrical side. And Bobby's mechanical side always presented as healthy and working properly. And here in Macon, they had never done the imaging or the tests that would show what was going on with the electrical side. And that's what was causing his issues. And the Sarc was in his heart. So all that inflammation, the way that his cardiologist described it, is the house is on fire. And so we'll have to do a therapeutic to put out the fire, and then we will have to see what the damage is left, after that. And so that would have been December 2020, January 2021, where we found out that it was actually the cause of what was going on with his heart, which we knew, in 2017, because we always come back to that, what Dr. John said, which is stop giving yourself something else, that it is probably sarcoidosis related. And so start there. And so it's in Bobby's heart. It's probably in his kidneys, but they can't biopsy because of some cysts that he has. So that's the assumption that they make is it's probably Sarc related. You're already on the therapeutic for that. And that gets hard to hear, well, you're on the best treatment we have for systemic Sarc. And then it's
right. What is it still prednisone, or is it methotrexate? Or
no, Bobby can't take prednisone. He has to take steroid sparing because of his blood sugar. Mm-hmm. That's not an option anymore. And especially since they are pretty sure that's what caused he has normal A1Cs or, good A1C, but he's insulin dependent. And they think that and the neuropathy are probably the result of having taken the prednisone and the dexamethasone for so long. And, that's hard too for both of us, because I feel like as a caregiver, I'm on the front line of doing the research for us and for him, because I have the energy to do that, and you just hate it when you've missed something, or you look back and you like, if we had just done this, or if we'd asked this question. But we're also not doctors. Bobby always reminds me that, when I look things up, he's like, you're not a doctor. And so you may not be able to figure it out with what you're bringing to the table.
Right. You're just scratching the surface with what you can find on the internet and what you can internalize without that training. Right.
And you're looking up every other word, but that to me as a caregiver, that's part of my, and just because he's my person, right? That's my person. And it's a very helpless feeling to, have your life, your person that is your life, in terrible pain or agony, or just unable to rest, or, the litany of things that Sarc patients go through, and be so helpless, not be able to help, because I'm a doer, I'm a fixer. That's my nature. And so it makes it hard because, I want to be with him. There's always something I feel like I can do. And he always says, I'm going to feel this way, whether you're here or not. But I can get him a glass of water if he's thirsty. I can get another blanket for him. I can help. We have different things we do to try and manage the neuropathy. So I can put this on your feet to make them feel better. There's got to be something I can do. And, that gets hard when you can't make the therapeutics do something.
Right. So what is his day-to-day life like? Does he get out of bed and go to the couch? Is he not able to work, or what is the day-to-day existence?
Right. So he has a very difficult time working full time right now. And so a lot for us, it's managing pain. I would say the hardest part, and that's would be the pain and the fatigue. And then what we call the fog, where you're just not clear. And, based on what I read, that can be because of Bobby's pain level. He's on some medications that make you fuzzy in the morning. I mean, medicines have so many side effects that we can't even, I wish we could see inside his body. But he gets up in the morning, and one of the things that we do to manage pain is a hot bath. And so, because you have to get enough of the pain gone to just be able to then start the day. And so that's what we do. We try to eat the same breakfast. Routine is very important when you're trying to manage an illness.
Right. So, what do you eat? What's the breakfast?
And we try not to deviate from this. He does bacon, 1 egg, grits, and a piece of toast. And so, and a Diet Pepsi. So that's what we have for breakfast. And part of that's because everything centers around the medicine you're taking. So he has medicines that if he doesn't take them with food, like Cellcept, which is an he takes the Cellcept to prevent his body from rejecting the Humira. You've got some stomach killers. Cellcept's a stomach killer. They just put him on a new heart medicine to help, which is, I think it's metoprolol is the name of it. That's supposed to be a stomach killer. So that's the reason for a bigger breakfast than he would ever have eaten when he was younger. He said he was never a breakfast person. But if we didn't do that, he wouldn't then be able to take his second medicine. And so then lately he sits in his recliner because that's a way for him to get his feet up, which seems to help with the neuropathy.
And his feet are in pain, right? From the neuropathy?
Yeah, he has pretty much whatever you would think of that happens with neuropathy. He has the burning. He has the strange sensations of where he'll say, my feet feel really cold. Will you see if they're really cold? And I touch them and they're not cold. But then I could touch them later and say, your feet are really cold. Or your feet feel cold? He doesn't feel them. So, and that could be the sarcoidosis that's causing that too. It can impact I know that our doctor told us that small fiber neuropathy, Sarc does not discriminate inside your body. It can, your brain, your heart, your skin, your nerves.
Mm-hmm. Does he take gabapentin?
We couldn't take the gabapentin. It made him so sleepy. So he takes Lyrica. And our joke is always, we're always trying to come off of a medicine or shift or make sure, is this working? Do we really have to be on this? And a lot of times when we do try to come off of something, that's when you realize it was helping, at least more than you knew. It just feels right now like they just put him on one more medicine. And, that's the hard part, is that we're both pretty positive in there with the doctors. And I'm a very positive person. Bobby will tell you that. But then we get in the car and, it's hard because, like he said, I said, well, we'll make sure that we get this prescription as soon as we get home. And he said, why? Well, because all the other medicines are working so great. He's very funny. He makes jokes, which is his way of,
sure. He's being sarcastic.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, because they all work so great.
I'm not at all sarcastic. Don't believe her.
So,
how are you?
Hi, Bobby.
He joined us.
Okay.
But that's his schedule. He, sometimes he can, work from his chair. Our company has provided us with all of the tools and equipment that he would need to be able to work remotely. Really, that was a part of COVID. Also, anybody with an autoimmune disease or compromise, like if you were under cancer treatments, we had the option of providing those tools. And we're only about 2 minutes from our office. Both of us work out of the same office. And so.
And what do you do?
We work for Edward Jones. We're both financial advisors.
Okay.
And our company has been amazing as far as how they take care of us. And so navigating that is a big part of it, is as a caregiver, navigating work, and because I want to be here to maintain our routine for him as well. But that's luckily we have a super amazing coworker who is our branch office administrator. And so we just tag team things, and people who we work with care about us. They know we care about them and they care about us. And so it's if we have to reschedule an appointment or we have to move something around in a day, people understand that. They understand that. So, and then on a bad day, he's in his chair the whole day. And we talk about ways to get his mind off of just the pain or the neuropathy, all of the things that he's battling. And, news, you can only watch so much news.
Now, wait a minute.
Right. You can only watch so much news. You can only, he plays video games, listens to me. There's only so much you can do from your chair. And when you're already mentally tired because you're doing battle, you're battling all the stuff that's going on with you physically, you just run out. You run out of, bandwidth. Your bandwidth's not very wide. And so, and I'm hoping with this new medicine, if they can he still has some extra beats in his heart. And we think that is what's causing, he likes to go out in the yard and work in the yard. So on a good day, he could actually get out there and move around. And that actually helps his heart outrun those extra bad beats. If he can get up and moving around, he can feel better. But whatever is going on with his heart, whatever the Sarc does when he is stationary or when he goes to sleep at night is when it kicks up and causes the most problems. And it's just this inability to get a deep breath. It's feeling like your legs are jello.
Mm-hmm.
That like if you get up on them, you can't trust them to do what they're supposed to do, which
Right.
is get you from one place to the other or keep you upright. So, people ask whether Bobby's had a good day or a bad day. We have to talk about it in hours.
Really? So we had several good hours today, or
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this now. So I think we know what's going on with Bobby, but you guys you're doing CrossFit. You meet at a CrossFit gym. And if people are listening, they don't know what CrossFit is. It's really like the most intense training that's out there. The fittest, buffest people I know do CrossFit. You're just crazy fit. You're eating protein all the time. You got these, muscles and six-pack abs and all that. And you go, so you guys meet and you decide to get married, and all of a sudden it just crashes. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're compassionate and I know that you care, but I mean, from your perspective, man, you just drew the short straw.
No, I don't ever see it that way. Bobby always says that to me. He says, you really, and that's an ongoing conversation that I'm sure spouses have or loved ones have. And I don't feel that way because he's not his disease. Now that's easy for me to say because I don't have to do battle in my physical body every day the way that he does. But he was Bobby Whaley when I met him. He was who he is. And he's an extraordinary person. And, that's the hard part for, a patient or a spouse. And then the caregiver is that's how he sees himself. And our situation in our life together is not how I see it at all. That he's not his disease. And so, yes, our life is different. And there are things about our life that, we certainly did not anticipate our journey. It is not what he wanted for me. It's not what he wanted for himself. It's not what he wanted for his son. And that's the hard part of living and accepting that. And we're not really in an acceptance phase yet because we still have hope that we're going to find something that then continues to give him more of normal's not a good, descriptor, but I don't see it that way because I have him and it's just, he's a very, very special person. He's, that's what I could say about him is that
Sure. Well, what is your day like? So how much of your time do you devote to helping him and how much do you devote to your horse or to the other aspects of your life, your job? I mean, how do you balance all of that?
So it's, I was talking to somebody the other day and this is kind of the way I feel is that it's hard to be 100% or great at all of the different roles or hats that we wear all at one time, right? Whether you're a parent or a friend, a coworker, whatever those hats are that we wear. But Bobby always has to come first. And so I always, and that's a prayer. Those are prayer, like I start the day, I want to make sure that I put things in place today to make sure that I'm always putting him first. That's just what I believe. And that would be the case whether he had sarcoidosis or not. He's my person. He's first. But it does get difficult just because you can't be in two places at one time. And I can't be in two places at one time. And so it's hard for me sometimes to be at the office when I know he's not feeling good because I want to be here to do the things that, could help him feel better, even though he tells me I'm going to feel the same way, whether you're here or you're not. But there's an isolation and a loneliness that comes with having sarcoidosis or any serious illness where you can't fully express how bad you feel. You can't fully express, even what's going on with your body. And, so I really have to construct a schedule each day with that in mind. So how do I take care of what Bobby needs first today? And then really have the flexibility to come home whenever I need to come home. And so it means things don't always get done in the time frame that somebody else might think I need to get something done. And
right. How do you do it? I mean, your bosses can only be so considerate, or your clients. I mean, if you've got to get something done, are you staying up until midnight then to get it done when you didn't do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? You do.
Yep, I do. So I have all of the same tools as well, as far as remote work, being able to work remotely. And really what I've found is that other people, we're not the only people who are having to manage life in that way, for different reasons. And so there's some things that I'm able to do, sitting in my chair next to Bobby at night. And then I can spend some time doing that. And then I can go into the kitchen, and then I can put the dishes in the dishwasher or start a load of clothes. It's a lot of, in fact, the way I would describe it, I guess, is it's kind of like circuit training. When you go to work out, where, I'll start in the kitchen and I'll load the dishwasher, let the dog out, come back in here, sit with my computer for, a couple of hours or an hour or whatever, get back up, go and check it's a lot of that, where ultimate multitasking, which can be super effective and efficient until your mind fails you. In other words, you have a moment of weakness where you're just tired and you forget something important. I forget to refill a medication, or I make a mistake with Bobby's medication. Those are the times where it's hard, because you're like, I needed to be more mentally together today. And, my mind has failed me. But it's because you're thinking of so many things at one time. Those are, Bobby and I are very honest with each other about, I'm so sorry that happened. I'm always trying to come up with a new system, that helps me manage the ups and downs, the unpredictability of our day, but still reframes our routine to protect and help him feel better and give him more hours back, more time back, where he can do more of the things that he wants to do, and that we can do more of the things together that we want to do. But that's the way I would describe it, is it's just like being on a circuit training fitness regimen, or in a gym, where you do a little bit over here and a little bit over here and a little bit over here, and then come back around. And there's only a certain amount of hours in the day.
Sure. Well, so that's how it lives, right? With the circuit training, and you do. But how does that compare to what you hoped or thought your life was going to be like when you guys launched this new, when you got married? And I mean, don't you mourn? Because I know that the Sarc patients do, but I want to ask you as a caregiver, don't you mourn the loss of the life you had or expected?
We do. Yeah. There's some grieving. And then for me, I am a believer in Jesus Christ. And so for me, how we think our life is going to go, not that we don't make plans. I believe biblically we make plans, but the blessing that is there for us, even in an unexpected circumstance. And so there is some grieving, but you can't wallow in that, or let that be, a huge amount of time where you're belly button gazing about what has been lost, or what your perception of what is lost, because there's this now, and then there's what's still ahead of us and what we do have. And so I think that that's hard for anybody who has gone through something where, Bobby and I talk a lot about the fact that I never got to have a child. And that really is something that he grieves for me. That was something that I didn't get to experience. But the way that I live my life is I believe that, but I have Corey. I do have a child, and I probably mother him more than I should, but you just have to, redirect that grieving, like grieve a little, but then, reroute it. Because otherwise we would, all of us, the amount that everyone loses, whatever we thought our life would be, you can get lost in that. And we both of us miss working out a ton. Cause it was something that we both enjoyed. I never would have, known as much about weightlifting or been as, that's something we both would like to get me back to. We've built out a little home gym here. And so carving out time, and it just hasn't worked out yet. And so I guess that's what I would say about feeling like I've lost something. I haven't lost things. It's just they've had to kind of be put in a storage unit or a closet while we work on this over here. And then just like you would with a storage unit or a closet, then you get it out. And, that's how I look at it, is here are the things that we miss the most about, and COVID impacted that too. These are the things that we miss the most about being able to travel. These are the things that we miss the most about being able to work out. This is what we thought our life would be like. We wanted to travel a lot. We both, like you're saying, we both loved to work out together. And so making that shift to see, okay, these are the things that we feel like we've lost. How do we figure out a way to put them back in just in a different way? And so it's, I guess there's a danger in, focusing on what you feel like you don't have or you lost, because that path is different. And Bobby carries that weight for me way more than I carry for myself. It's really hard for him because he had in his mind the life he wanted to give me. But I have had enough big, hard things happen early on in my life to where I know that things are not ever going to be. That was never an expectation I had. That's how I probably should have answered the question to start with, is, I just wanted a life with him, whatever that meant. I did not have I didn't have the same expectations about, what that might specifically look like. I just wanted to have a life with him. So,
well, it's a big trip, a big difference between bombing down Big Sky on a downhill mountain bike to living life on the couch. And traveling and doing all those things. And so what advice would you give to other caregivers who are either grappling with the same thing or trying to figure out how to proceed? Because everybody loves their person, but people have different amounts of attachment to what their life was before their person wound up with sarcoidosis. What would you say to them?
I think it's super important. My mom, when we talk, she's always like, well, are you taking care of yourself? How are you doing? Are you taking care of yourself? And, people have different needs in regards to that, as far as, having a devotional in the morning or a workout or whatever that space is that you have to carve out for yourself. So you do have to know yourself and know that if you have to have that time to be mentally ready to fight every day, that's got to be something you put in place, which for a caregiver, it may not be the same time every day. I think that's that's probably my best advice, is that you may not be able to keep the same routine every day at the same time, But whatever those things are that you need in place to not be crazy, have those in place. And, for me, I like to just walk around in the yard with my elderly dog. And like this morning, I took him out to go potty, and there were 2 deer, standing in the yard. And so those are the things that I have to have. I like things I like surprises. And so, finding those things in your life or asking people to do those things for you, that's the best advice I would have, is that the things that you need to not make you crazy.
You have to take care of yourself, no matter how dedicated you are.
Right.
You can't help. I always go back to the analogy of in the airplane. They say in the event that the masks drop down, put your mask on before you help the person next to you, right? The child or the elderly person. Right. And you can't help your sarcoidosis patient if you're not in the right place.
Right. And that means some things. So, making sure that you have things in place that, whatever that is, for me, I used to eat super clean. This may sound like a cop out to some people, but my priorities have shifted. And so if I want to eat a Krispy Kreme donut on my way, or if Bobby and I want gas station treats, I'm picking them up because, and so that to me, someone else, my mom, I'm sure would be like, Amy, that's not gonna, that may make you feel worse. But, for me and Bobby, that's fun. I mean, do you want me to pick you up a Blizzard? And those are the things that, so you do give up some things. And so you really have to determine what your non-negotiables are for not being crazy. Because
we have some of the same vices, by the way, but go ahead. Yes.
Yep. And that's it for, and he has things too. And so understanding what helps him not go crazy as he navigates this and fights. And sometimes that means I just can't do one more dish and I'm going to let that go. So that's one thing. That would be my other piece of advice, is that the things that other people might come into your home or your life and be like, gross, or you can't get that done, or this needs to be done, for whatever people think your first to be done should be. I just let go of those things. And you have to, otherwise to me, that will make you crazy. Because
all right. I want to interrupt because I think that's a great point. So you just can't worry about what other people think.
Oh, no.
Can't. You got to live your own life. You're walking a different walk than the person who might walk into your house and see that you didn't finish the dishes or whatever.
Yep.
So then what I hear you saying though is like, you're still planning to unpack that storage unit. You still have that hope that something is going to come along, or Bobby is going to find a way to heal himself, his body is, and you're going to get back into the gym and you're going to get back into traveling and that kind of stuff. And how important is it to hold on to that hope?
Oh, it's super important. But I will say that it's not, we have adjusted our expectation for that. So for us, it would be to be able to walk. There's a little park locally that has a walking path. So that's where we would start, or for us to both work out in the yard together. We both enjoy that. And so unpacking in smaller increments, I guess, is what I would say. But and that can be aggravating. I'm a very hopeful person, and I know that sometimes you don't want to feel that way if you are the patient. You need just a minute to just be sad or disappointed. And I'm, always like, no, this might work. This will, turn out fine. It's going to get better. And, so you do have to, that'd be another piece of advice, is you do have to allow, if you're, whoever your person is, whether it's your child or your spouse, that person may not be able to do that right in that moment. They may not be able to accept to hang on hope, but that's your job. I mean, even if you don't have my personality and you are the caregiver, that's your job to be strong. That's what I believe. That's your job, because Bobby doesn't have enough physical energy to do that. So you have to be the one that holds the line. And so even if I don't, maybe have the right words or to say, it's always going to be a pivot to hope, because I believe that, number one, I do believe that. And then two, that's my job as a caregiver. I mean, that's my job, is to present that, yeah.
Wow. Well, listen, we've been talking for about an hour now, and I see so many parallels between what you're going through and what other people have gone through that I've talked to on the patient side. And I just want to congratulate you for having the strength and the tenacity, and really what in my mind is the right way to address the hand that you've been dealt. And I think that's it's very admirable.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Right.
Bobby and I are in it together. Yeah. I mean, it's, I can't imagine my life without him. So it's like two peas or peas and carrots.
There you go. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
All right. Thanks, John.
Feel like a zombie, just feeding and stumbling.
So thanks to Amy. She doesn't think of herself as a saint, but she is. And so are the many, many other people out there who take care of people whose lives have been turned upside down by sarcoidosis, including, as I've said many times, my own wife, Mary. Now, I want to tell you that I did talk with Bobby after we concluded the recording. She passed him the computer and we chatted a little bit. He's pretty bummed out by all the things that have happened to him, but he is a fighter. Remember, he's an athlete. He's a former football coach, and he really wants to find a way to get back to some semblance of normal life. He told me that his work team has been very supportive and that he's continuing to serve his clients with their financial investments. That's what he does professionally. And he's extremely thankful for all the help that he gets from Amy, and he says he feels a bit guilty that she's had to go through all of this. So, and I understand that. I do understand that. And we haven't shined the light often enough on the other people who are impacted by the person who has sarcoidosis. So sarcoidosis doesn't just hit the patient, it hits the whole family. So Amy is, however, the first caregiver to really reach out to me and to say, hey, I think I would like to share my story, and I'd like to, to talk to what it's like for me, and maybe give other caregivers something to think about and know that they're appreciated. So I would like to hear from you. If you're a caregiver, please ping me, as they say. The best way to reach me is with my email. It's in the show notes, but it's carlinagency@gmail.com, carlinagency@gmail.com. And thanks so much to Amy for appearing and for Bobby for our, we probably had a 45-minute conversation after we stopped recording. I almost wished I would have recorded both of them at the same time. But today it was all about Amy, and I think that was a good way to go. But thank you, Bobby, also for taking the time to talk with me and to help round out my knowledge of how things are going for you guys down there in Georgia. Hey, a reminder, the official Sarc Fighter song is called Zombie by Mark Steyer and his band, the White Hot Lizards in Alberta, Canada. Mark's a fellow Sarc Fighter, and if you listen to the words of that song, they are very haunting because they are my song, they're your song if you have sarcoidosis. Trust me on that. Listen to the lyrics. You won't be disappointed. Gives me chills every time I listen to it. And he's agreed to let that be the official song of the Sarc Fighter podcast. So thank you to Mark. I call this the Sarc Fighter podcast, of course, because I fight Sarc myself. So are you. You're, whether, as you said, a caregiver, whether, as I said, a caregiver, a patient, or researcher. And I do want to let you know that there's a reason to hope, and we release this podcast every other Monday. Also remember that FSR is funding research and has awarded 2 grants grants of $25,000 each to 2 researchers in the HOPE department. One researcher is trying to find a way to help patients avoid prednisone. The other working to ensure Sarc patients are able to be successfully vaccinated against COVID. And the end of the year is when many people donate to charity, so please join me in making a donation to FSR. Here as we approach the Christmas and holiday season in 2021. And I'll put links to all of the information, all the research, and all the funding that FSR is doing that I just mentioned in the show notes. And please don't forget to go back and listen to the bonus episodes about Sarc and COVID. And I also did another bonus episode where all we talked about was prednisone. We had doctors on, we had patients on, we had researchers on, and all we talked about was prednisone and how awful it is, but how much we need it. And how we kind of have to do a little dance with the devil there. But go back and find that special episode, a link in the show notes as well. If you're new here, just trying to figure out what sarcoidosis is, go to episode 2 with Dr. Simon Hart. It's one of the most listened to episodes. I think people Google around, they are looking for information about sarcoidosis. They say, here's a podcast. They listen, but they may be jumping right in and they over their heads and they don't know what's going on. Go back and start with episode 2 and then ping around and find what interests you. And if you want to know more about my story, it's episode 1. The backstory to the founding of the Foundation for Sarcoidosis Research is episode 11 with Andrea and Redding Wilson. They started this whole thing, and Andrea is a Sarc Fighter. Please send me an email. It's in the show notes. Let me know how sarcoidosis is affecting your life or what you think of the podcast. Follow the Sarc Fighter on Instagram and Facebook. And just remember that I appreciate your interest in the Sarc Fighter podcast. It helps me reach more people and grow the show if you would share it on your social media. And if you like it, please just tell one person. Thanks again to Amy Whaley for joining me here today. Thank you for all you do as a caregiver. It is so much appreciated. All you caregivers are appreciated. And until next time, keep fighting.
Learn to suffer, you feel pain someday. Learn endurance, your strength will fade away. Dead man walking, trying to keep up the pace. Dead man walking, counting